Well, hello to episode 24. I had to double check of Blocked magazine. And you're probably getting a bit sick of me at the moment because I seem to be everywhere, don't I? We did a live yesterday with Tabitha, and that was the royal we then. We did a live with Tabitha. And also the show I did with Kerry on Popped Culture on her Deprogrammed channel was finally shown on YouTube after being, I don't know that it was banned. I think it got lots of copyright notices, even though it was fair usage, and obviously they had to check it, and now it's back online. So there's already 5 hours of me out there from this week. And so let's add on to that now. So let's see if I can get, I don't know, to a 10-hour week. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to return to talking about past issues of Blocked, and I realized the other day that I have completely forgotten to carry on with this. I'd done the first 5 issues, so now I'm going to do issue number 6. Now, this was the Christmas issue, which is a little bit ironic, as today is one of the hottest days in the UK at the moment. I have got the fan on, so hopefully that isn't interfering with the microphone, and I am boiling. And wouldn't you believe it, the cat, or well, one of my cats, has decided today he's particularly clingy and wants to sit on me or as near to me as possible, making me even more hot. So he's here now on the desk beside me. So no doubt you'll see his tail going by at different points through this. So, before I carry on, let's just talk about yesterday's live stream. OMG, it was hilarious. When we looked later on the Craft Snap page where they'd been, panicking about Tabitha and I talking about them, the stuff they were saying was absolutely brilliant. They've kind of run out of things to say about us, so now they're just calling us names, because of how old we are. So they were saying that I was a boomer. I'm not, by the way. And they were saying Tabitha is a Gen Xer. She's not, by the way. And it was sort of kind of very playgroundish, because rather than talking about what we have, the issues that we raised, which are I think they're legitimate issues. Instead of doing that, they were just talking about what we look like in terms of our age. And, and also they were doing lots of what's called armchair diagnosing. So, saying how insane we were and things like that. And that's one of Craft Snark's rules. You're not allowed to do that. But they're leaving all them up at the moment, because the only person or subject that doesn't have the rules applied is Blocked magazine. So anyway, we're talking too much about that now, because there's a whole 2 hours of that you can watch, and we're going to return to it soon as well. So let's get into issue 6. So let me just get it up on my screen as well. Wow. Oh, let me just go back. This is the cover of issue 6, and wow, I'll tell you what, it was so hard finding a model, because I knew I wanted a Christmas theme. So I thought, well, perfect to try and find Santa. Well, I don't know anybody that looks like Santa anywhere. So it took a long time. I had to put like a casting call out, and and in the end we've managed to find this guy who I don't think there could have been a better Santa, to be honest. And what I did, he got this picture taken of himself sat in his chair in his living room, and the rest of it is photoshopped. It's photoshopped onto a Christmas tree background, and I'm quite proud of myself, because I worked out how to make, blend it in and make sure it looks like it's all part of the same picture. And I think I succeeded with that. And here, just to let you know, that's a ball of Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. And I think the colorway is called I'm Hotter Than You, which is dedicated to something I said when it was summer last year. So, issue 6 cover. And we start off, we've got an advert here from Anna Knitter. So this was from 2022, obviously. So that is now probably out of date. So, don't try and use that code anymore. We have all our contributors listed down here. And here, I can't see this now. How can I zoom in? As you can see, one of the other things they criticised me for on Craft Snark was not knowing how to use IT. Well, you'll just have to deal with that, I'm afraid. Here we go. So Yelena of Scythia wrote the introduction to the magazine for this issue. I have written a little bit at the top there. I'm not even going to bother trying to read that. I can't actually see it on the screen. I think if you go on to where the magazine is stored on my I was going to say Instagram. The link is on my Instagram or on my Twitter, and it's in Linktree, and you can go to each issue, and then you'll be able to read it a bit better there. And Yelena wrote about all the people that have been blocked, and she's kind of thanking them. Because this was kind of like the end of the first year of Blocked, really. It was we started in January, and this was the December. So she wrote a really good intro. And then the trusty old laziest knitter. Oh, I love her or his articles. They're so cool. And this is really relevant to me at the moment because I'm at that point now where I'm getting a bit overwhelmed with stash. And I can't knit it faster than I'm acquiring it. And I don't buy that much compared to some other people as well. So I am going to revisit this article, and I'm going to sort of take a few notes from it. Because one of the key things that she mentions in this article is that it's only a problem if you're starting to feel overwhelmed. If you love your stash and you want a bigger stash and you just want to keep building it, that's perfectly fine. Who's anybody to criticize that? But it's when you feel it's getting too much. So it's a really good article. And excuse me while I just cough. Excuse me. And then we have a cool little cowl design here by Deplorable Knitter. Now, one of the things about the patterns that are in this issue is we were trying to go for things that could be made quite quickly, ready for Christmas, because I can't remember the date we released. It was in December. I think it was the 1st of December, I think. So all of the patterns are either chunky or small or things that can happen fast. So, and I love these. This is a design that I think it was this one. I'd kind of been designing something along the same lines myself. And then I realized when DK submitted this, she'd actually done a much better job than I would have done of something similar. So I just gave up on mine. Okay, then this is an article that I wrote. And the first part of it, you won't necessarily know what the link to wool and yarn and knitting is. But then there is a part 2 that comes later. So this is a little bit of a revisit to the days of the Koof and the old Maxine, jibby jabby. And it's about the kind of people that enforced that, the kind of people that were willing to, hurt other people in the name of, following orders, basically. And it's about an experiment that was done. I think it was in the 60s. The details are in the article. And they took a load of people into a room, and they said, they told them it was part of an experiment. And some of the people were on the receiving end of electric shocks, and some of the people were on the giving end of electric shocks. And they were asked questions, and they were told that every time they got a question wrong, they would get an electric shock. And as the questions got harder and people were getting them wrong, the voltage, the people behind it were telling them to turn the voltage up. It wasn't really turning the voltage up. And the people who were in the other room were told, they just said, just scream, pretend, So basically the idea was to see how far these people would go turning the voltage up. And I think the result was 40% of them would have gone as far as killing someone, even though they did object. Some of them said, I don't want to do this anymore, but they were told, no, you've got to do it. So they did continue to do it. And I feel this is exactly the same thing as what happened in Second World War, why people were, pointing out people hiding and giving people up to the Nazis and so on. And there's definitely a type of person that will collaborate, if you like, and will give you away and grass you up, as we would say in this country. And that's what this is about. And we come back to this story a bit later on. And this is a pattern. This is the Evil Santa hat. So it's called that because that's what they call me, the Evil Santa. And it's a very, very quick hat to crochet. It's if you're a fast crocheter, you'll make it in an evening. If you're a slow or average crochet, you'll probably make it over 2, maybe 3. It's very, very fast, and you can memorize the pattern very, very quickly. I think it's can you believe it? I actually made this and designed it, and I can't remember, but I think it's single crochet all the way through. I think, but I can't. Oh no, it's It's half double crochet through the back loop, I think, which is my favorite. Anyway, I can't remember. Ignore me. Excuse me. And this is the second part of the article I was talking about, and this is the drop stitch feature. And I don't know whether I'm going to continue doing the drop stitch feature. At least I'm not sure whether I'll be doing it in this format. I've got a frog in my throat. And this is about a lady called Patty Lyons. Now, Patty Lyons is a designer, and she's written a couple of books, and she does training sessions on on knitting, etc. And the reason why she was the drop stitch of the month is that she decided that every time she does a show anywhere, every single person that enters the building, whether they're staff, whether they're visitors, whether they're customers, has to show proof of a vaccination I think it was proof of a vaccination and a clear COOF test that had been taken within 48 hours or 24 hours. I forget now. And it's quite a weird story because she'd been booked to appear by this group. I think they were like a yarn guild. I don't know which state it was now. It is in the article. And they paid the deposit, which I think was about $2,000. And they're a small group and they couldn't really afford to lose $2,000. And then they realized late in the day that she had this clause in the contract. So they tried to get out of the contract and basically she refused. Whether she threatened to sue or whatever, I'm not sure, but she wouldn't let them out of the contract. So they had to go ahead with it. And she insisted that and also they had to be masked. So you had to be masked, you had to have a vaccine, and you also had to have a clear test, which is kind of ridiculous because it's like, well, surely if after all that, doing all those things, you're still not safe from it, what is the point? It's just ridiculous. And anyway, I'm going to go off on whatever I talk about that. So it's an interesting article and it says a lot about this particular person. And one of the links to this is that she would have definitely been the kind of person that would have been turning the voltage up on, in the questions. She's definitely the person that would have, rang up to tell Hitler that Anne Frank was in the attic. This is the kind of people that we had to deal with at that time. And it's kind of good that we now know who those people are. We know who they are in our families, in our friend groups, if they're still in your friend groups. We know who they are in the wider culture to kind of avoid in future, really. Anyway, then we've got an article by Karen. And this is about those special yarns that you get. I think it was, I don't think she coined it, but Marie from Skeins Yarns calls them unicorn yarns. So these are the ones that you can't live without when you see them. And and then when you've got them, you don't really know what to do with them. This is what most of my stash is made from, really. So good little article. Then we have a dissident, and I think, did we do 2 this month? I know we did a Christmas themed one and we did one that wasn't Christmas themed. I'm not going to, just in case you knit these and you don't want spoilers, I won't say what it was, although it will probably be on the hashtag. If you do a hashtag for dissidents and squares, you'll find it. Excuse me. Okay, then we have an article from this. I'm just checking I can say the name. It's Two Sisters and Some Yarn. So I don't know. I don't think her name's secret. So, but I won't say it just in case. And this is some quite useful advice here. And I'm just going to say hello to everyone. I know I don't like doing these on lives, but here we go. I'll just say who's here. So, hello Senko, how you doing? And hello Tabitha. Tabitha's cleaning. About time. And who else? We've got Politically Incorrect Knitters. Hey, it's not often you manage to see her live. So, all right, how do I take that off now? Now I've got it on. I can't get it off. Oh, someone's saying, how can I get the Block magazine? Okay, the Block magazine is free and it's online. So if you go to my Instagram or my Twitter account and look under the profile picture, there's a link, and it's a link tree. And if you just go to the link tree, every issue that we've had so far, all 9 of them are listed there. And then just click on it. And from there, you can download it to your own PC or your own device, or you can just read it from the platform itself. So hope that helps you get that. Okay, so things that Two Sisters recommended here. And I want to, oops, I keep going backwards, don't I? It's these bit in the bold here. And it's things like, how can you advocate for your knitting friends? So basically the biggest one here is do your own research. And I think this is particularly apt for myself. Because of the things that get said about me, you know, they say I do all sorts. I've pretty much, you know, been a mass murderer by, you know, the time they finish talking about me. But, you know, do your own research. If you're worried about anything they say, go and find out. You know, don't just take what they say at face value, because they very rarely give any evidence of any kind. And the oh gosh, excuse me. This is because I've been talking so much. It's all Tabitha's fault. Excuse me a second. If anybody joins now, they'll think I'm crying because my eyes are probably red. Yeah, so do your own research and knit patterns of the so-called cancelled. So I would say knit any pattern that you like. You know, if you like a pattern, knit it. It doesn't matter who it's by. But where you can, please support those that have been cancelled. Speak up for yourself. Absolutely. You know, there's enough people, there's enough of us now to support each other when things happen. So, you know, you can always, you know, get backup and things like that if you need to. Find your vibe, I think that says. No, tribe. God, I need new glasses. Yeah, find your tribe. Yes, you will, because there are quite a few of us now. There's quite a few tribes. So get onto that and give that a read. It's a good article. Yeah, so yet again, so Merry Christmas, everyone watching. And these are some Christmas Carol coaster collections. So these were, again, they were designed to be a fast knit for Christmas, because we released this very early on in the December. Every time I see this one that says Noel, I just keep thinking it's me, Neil. You know, obviously I can't read properly. Designers and indie dyers. Now, this is probably something that I'm going to be taking out. Because what I've been worried about is the people being attacked and targeted by the idiots that hate watch. Now, I don't really know. I'm kind of I keep coming backwards and forwards on this, because I don't want to take these away, because then it's like they've won, but then at the same time I don't want people to be at any kind of risk of anything happening. So I don't know. We're still working that out. And this was the Tenny's Farm drama, and it was, wow, this is a saga and a half. I had never even heard this. So when Lady Di, when all that drama was going on, we covered it in the magazine, and we were accused of only covering that because she was black. And obviously, you know, with us being raving racists, you know, that's why we did that. But it wasn't the case. It's just that I'd never even heard of this character before. You know, it hadn't come up for me, you know, in anything. So anyway, we did a bit of research, and Yelena told the story. And if you haven't read it, read it. It's just bizarre. It really is bizarre. I won't tell you any of the details. We did do a second dissident. So this was the Christmas one, hence the clue at the top right there. And we took out the affiliate testers because people were getting abuse. And I don't know whether I think we're going to take this bloggers and vloggers out. Oh, one of the things the craft snarkers said was that this word here, they said it looks like bloggers and the N word. When they said it, I just thought, that kind of shows where their brain is. You know, that doesn't say anything about us or my magazine. It's just where their head goes when they see something beginning with what looks to them like an N. You know, it's actually vloggers. Anyway. Then we had a pattern by Anna Knitter, who's like the sock designing supreme person. And this was a bit of research that I'd done, and I found an article in was it Norwegian? I think it was Norwegian. It was a Scandinavian country anyway. And I managed to translate it on Google Translate and managed to write the story about the Spitzklacker hats, which were worn in the Second World War when Germany had taken over most of Europe. And is it the Danish? It's the Danish. Sorry, it's Danish, not Norwegian. I'm getting them confused. And people wore these hats as a resistance to the Nazis. And at first, they weren't too bothered about it and they just tolerated it. But then it actually got quite dangerous to wear them. And if an adult was seen wearing them, they were often arrested and fined, and if they didn't pay the fine, they went to prison. And so what I did, based on the original pictures, and also there's a knitting pattern online. I have a link to the knitting pattern. There is a mistake in it, though. So just read the comments underneath that if you do want to knit it, that is. So I just designed 3 versions of the hat in crochet, just so people, I know it's silly, people probably won't want to do it, but it's quite a cool little pattern. And then here we have a pattern by Two Sisters and Some Yarn. And looking at this now, I kind of regret how we presented this, because I think the image of the shawl doesn't give it justice, because it's a really nice shawl, and looking now, it kind of, you don't really see the whole thing. So I might I might share it again just on Instagram, just so you can see a little bit better. So I kind of want to knit those socks, says DK. This is Deplorable Knitter, by the way, for those that don't know. I might be getting sick. Yeah, surely you are, because you never knit socks. And just looking who else has joined. Oh, we're getting quite a few people here now. I wasn't expecting anyone to watch. Thank you for joining us. So this article is about when you send a gift to somebody overseas. And the point of it is, well, it's not even about gifts. It's about Britain, really, because Britain has some of the most ridiculous import and export rules of any country that I know of. So, for example, I think in the USA, I believe you're allowed to receive gifts and goods overseas up to about $1,000 before there's any kind of involvement with the authorities. Whereas in the UK, it's $39. So the moment it goes a penny above $39, the receiver of the gift or the thing that they've ordered has to pay duties on that, and it's quite expensive. So I've been caught out a couple of times where you end up having to pay almost as much again as the original order. And where they're sneaky is it isn't just about the value of the item that you've bought, it's the value of the item you've bought plus the original shipping cost as well. And it's a percentage of the overall cost that the government then charges you before you're allowed to get your item. And they then charge you postage on top of that. So it's like really cheeky. It's like, well, no, the postage was already paid, but you intercepted that, and then you're going to charge extra. So I wrote an article about it just so people know, if you have got any friends or customers in the UK, have a read of that article before you send anything to them. And just if it's a gift, make sure it says gift, on the form. There's a couple of examples here of the forms that you have to fill in. I don't know whether I think that's the British one. There might be an American one as well. I think did I show 2? No, I only showed the one. Yeah, so it must be the British one. Anyway, moving on from that, then we had another Christmas knit. This was a quick gift. So this is the Covfefe Break Cozy. Hopefully people will know. I've just seen something in the comments there. I couldn't possibly say, Tabitha. I couldn't possibly say. So those that know what Covfefe is, then that's a little nod to Kerry. And here we go. This is a scarf. This is quite a quick crochet pattern as well. It's probably one of the simplest crochet scarf patterns that you could make. I think it's called the moss stitch in crochet, where you just do a single crochet, a chain, and then you skip one, single crochet, chain, skip one, and that's it. But then when you change the colors, it creates this kind of effect here where you kind of have these little blips of a separate color. Now, this is great for if you want to introduce something really colorful to something for someone who maybe only likes brown or only likes blacks or whatever, because then you could just have one row of, because this particular scarf had one row of Chicken Ladies yarn in there. If you zoom in, you can see it, but it's very subtle. It wasn't too bad, because I wanted something because that's something a bloke would wear, and there is a bit of color in that. Obviously, not all blokes wouldn't wear colour, but you know what I mean. So anyway. Oh, and it's called The Scarf with a Charming British Accent because, funnily enough, it was the lady I was talking about yesterday, Penelope Lister Hemingway. She was the one who said that I was cultivating my Santa look and my charming British accent to fool you all. So that's why it's called Charming British Accent. The Lydia Shaw. Now, this is by big sister of Two Sisters and Some Yarn, and this is quite good because it's got a. I love a crochet chart. I know some people, see them and just get the fear of God in them, but I like a chart because you can see exactly what you have to do and what it's supposed to look like as well. But it is also written out as well. Now, at some point, I'm going to do some kind of a tutorial on how to read crochet charts because a few people have asked me about this, and I'm just trying to work something out because what I want to do is I want to be able to show the chart on the screen, and the problem is if I use an established chart, I could be done for copyright, and I've been trying to use a software program that allows you to create crochet charts, but it isn't working very well. It's probably my fault, IT idiot, I don't know. Anyway, so now we've finished that issue, so stay tuned. Oh, here's where I do the grift. So here we go, the grifting part here. Now, if you do try and join Patreon at the moment, it's actually on a hiatus. I've paused it for 2 months. So it's going to be back up and running again on the 1st of September. And by then, issue 10 should be released because I've been having a bit of a break from the magazines because for various reasons. And I didn't think it was fair to be charging patrons for that. So, we've got an advert for Fiberosity there. And I think, almost the end. So here there's a comment. It's not very timely anymore. This was when in December last year. This was when what was she called? Kathy Griffin appeared again. Is it Griffin or Griffith? I can't remember. And at the time, the idiots were speculating as to whether it was me who was behind Blocked, or whether it was somebody like Nathan Taylor or Christy Glass and so on. So the idea here is it's the Scooby-Doo, unveiling the villain, and each time it's somebody else. And finally it ends up being Kathy Griffin. And then, we do the thing like she did with Trump. So at the time, it was relevant. Now, not so much. Okay. Freedom of Speech Union, I've always put that in. That's just to cover myself under the British law for the ability to have free speech, which we don't have. And that's why the Freedom of Speech Union exists. So someone said it's September the 8th. No, it's Christmas. It's Christmas, really. Right. So that was the Christmas issue. While you're all here, shall I do the next issue? Because I want to catch up as much as I can. So the next issue is... was it this one? Yeah, so this is issue 7. Now, this was our anniversary issue. So this was the 1-year anniversary. And we released it on exactly the same day as the year before. And a few things to tell you about this is the yarn. I haven't said anything. I waited to see if anybody would notice, and nobody has ever noticed. So I'm going to tell you all now. The yarn is Lola Bean yarn. So, because I thought it'd be quite funny because she was the, not the reason, but she was like the main sort of subject of the first issue. And I thought that was like a little bit of a nod to that. And it's I love this photo. And I love the way we put the logo over here and had all this space. Sorry, my mobile phone's beeping away in the background there. And the idea behind this image is that, this is kind of like the light in the darkness of the woke knitting idiocy. So anyway, so that was that. And here we go. Yeah, so this was well, just say on the left there, that's all the contributors. I won't go through them now in case people start being harassed. But this was the letter that has been in the magazine since the first issue. So I think we took it out of a couple of issues, but it was definitely in the first and second and maybe the third. And it's the Dear Knitfluencers letter. And it took them a year to find this. And this is what they shared on Craftsnark. And they pulled it apart word by word, basically. And then from this is why they then started to compile lists from the affiliate testers list. And there were a couple of people that were harassed over this. And one person's family member, I mean, some of us will know who this is, but I'm not going to say, but one person's family member was outed as being in the LGBT community, which again is one of the things that the Kraft Snarkers, propose. I don't know what the word is. Can't think of the word. Anyway, one of the things that they claim they're against. So they break their own rules all the time. So that's just the same old letter that we have in there. And I'm going to start putting it back in again just to wind them up because I know it gets to them. Because in it, I use a couple of phrases that Gigi coined. And so this is my introduction. This was our happy birthday message. And I won't go into that. You can read that. And then, as always, the Laziest Knitter did a really good article. These articles are very, very good, by the way. She knows the stuff. So this is all about caring for your hand knits, as it says. As always, we're always looking for contributors. So if you've got an idea for an article, or you want to submit a pattern, or even a piece of artwork, feel free, send it in to us. Funerals. This was interesting. Now, this was our friend in New Zealand, and Christine. Christine is a homeschool. I want to say expert. Is she an expert? I don't know. I'm going to say expert because she does a regular vlog about homeschooling, and there's been a few times where there's been a crossover into the knitting world, and this one was quite interesting. And although it seems quite maudlin and miserable to be talking about funerals, there's actually some quite interesting points in here about knitting as well, and how people deal with funerals, and how young people don't necessarily know how to deal with funerals because they're kept away. Anyway, cheerful. Right, what was this one? Wow, because I've not when I do the magazine, I kind of move on. So once it's out, I move on, and then I'm thinking about the next one. So sometimes I come across an article, I think, what the hell is that about? Right. Oh, it's from Yelena. So this will be another knitter or dyer or yarn business that has been doing dodgy things. And let's just go back a second. Yeah, it's in two parts, I think. Is it the Red Panda story? Something like Panda something, I think it was. Anyway, I think the story is that it's somebody who did a bit of a runner, and then one of the rumors was that this person ended up in Alaska, or they were last seen in Alaska. So I'm going to have to reread that myself because I can't remember the full story of that. Okay, another dissident. I won't give it away. Oh, and here, because it was the 1 year anniversary, this is the information or the writing about Adela that I didn't put into issue 1. I pulled it because issue 1 ended up being a little bit, or it would have ended up being very Adela heavy. So we took it out, and this is the word for word transcript of what she said about Christy Glass, and it's really bad. I think it's really bad. And not only that, you can watch the video as well. So you can read my transcript and you can watch the video. So it's like, there's the evidence. It's all there in context. We haven't taken bits out to try and make her look bad. We've just thrown it all in, and you can see the whole thing in order as she said it. And it's bad. Oh God! I actually did a drawing for that article, and I can't even remember what it's about. Yeah, so I did this drawing. So this is supposed to be somebody lost in Alaska. I mean, I'm sure Alaska doesn't really look like that. That was just what I imagined. Okay, the drop stitch I mentioned before. We're probably going to drop the drop stitch, or at least we're going to change it slightly. I'm not quite sure yet. And this one is about Andrea Mowry. This is Andrea here. Now, I don't particularly have any beef with Andrea Mowry. I've not come across her that much. I mean, she's very prolific as a designer. Whether people like them or not, I don't know. But the one issue that I do have is that, bearing in mind that she has, before taxes and before fees have been taken away, she has made, or she's earned, more than $1 million from Ravelry sales of her patterns alone. And she may be selling her patterns elsewhere as well. So bear that in mind. And then what she's doing, or has been doing, she may have changed her policy by now because of this, but on her patterns, once you've bought them, so you have to buy them first, there's then a clause there that says that you're not allowed to knit the items and then sell them on. Now, there's a few issues about that. One, in American law, that doesn't hold up. You know, you can buy a pattern and you can knit an item and you can sell that item over and over and over and over again. The only thing covered by copyright is the words of the pattern itself. Nothing to do with the garment is copyrighted unless it's a piece of artwork, you know, maybe something that's an original Fair Isle design, for example. Because if you look at a sweater or a hat or a pair of gloves, there's only so many ways you can make a sweater or a hat or a pair of gloves. And if it hasn't been if it isn't unique, you can't trademark it or copyright it. So all sweaters are up for grabs, basically. And if you use a design from a Stitch design from a Stitch design dictionary, you know, anyone can use them. So anybody can copy that design as well. And one of the things that seems to happen with Andrea Mowry is people do, I don't want to say copy, but some people are inspired by it. Some people design things completely independently of her, and they end up either looking the same or almost the same. But she doesn't have a leg to stand on because those things that she's used, none of them are unique to her. So anyway, going back to what her copyright thing says, is that no one's allowed to sell items that they make. And this is wrong on a couple of levels. So one, it's against United States law. The second, copyright law, I should say. And the other thing is it's against pretty much every country's law, is that she gives you that clause after you've paid your money. Whereas the only way it would be enforceable, to my limited legal knowledge, is if she has that there before you purchase it. So anything that is, you know, a clause in there after buying something, it's not enforceable, or you would at least have a good chance of, you know, fighting it if it ever went to court. I mean, the chances are she's never going to take it to court anyway, but I just thought it was really mean, you know, because it's, there are lots of people that knit her designs using yarn that she doesn't recommend, because the yarn she recommends is very expensive. I believe one, Tabitha will know, who's in the comments, I believe one of her designs, if you use the yarn she used herself, I think it was $600 to make a sweater, you know, and that's out of most people's ability to pay. So so when people aren't rich and aren't making $1 million, you know, out of the knitting world, let them sell something at a craft fair. You can't knit that many bloody sweaters anyway. It's not like you could knit 1 million. Well, Tabitha, you might. It's not like you could knit 1 million of them and then make a load of money selling them, you know, at, I don't know, some kind of warehouse deal thing. Here we go. Let me just share this as well. So Tabitha says, yes, she also gets upset when people don't knit the right yarn for the pattern. Yeah, which is, you can't, most people can't afford that. Because it's usually, I think it's always Spin Cycle. Is it always Spin Cycle? If you've never looked at Spin Cycle, it's nice yarn, but it's very, very, very expensive. To make a sweater, like I said before, you're talking £600. You know, I'd rather buy an iPad. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather buy an iPad than have to spend that same amount of money to make it myself. I don't think I would buy a sweater for that price that somebody else made, unless it was made out of diamonds and gold. The other one is Magpie yarn as well. I don't know much about Magpie yarn. They're the weird magpie girls, aren't they? I'm assuming theirs is quite expensive as well. I don't know, though. I shouldn't say that because I don't actually know. So that's what this drop stitch was about. Now, this one, I think this got us a little bit of, I think people were a bit disappointed in us that we did this one. And I don't know why, but I don't think people liked that we went for Andrea Mowry, because I think on the face of it, she appears quite nice and whatever, but she does hang around with some of the mean girls of the knitting world. So I'm not sure just how nice she is. And also she donated, I think she donated quite a lot of money to the big knitting grift of the century. You know, the £100,000 GoFundMe for Lola Bean yarn. I think she donated to that. So that's enough to have her in here as far as I'm concerned. Okay, moving on. So we talked about this in the last issue, designers and indie designers. Oh, actually, I'm going to go through them all. So these are people that have either let us publish one of their patterns in the magazine, or they've submitted an article, or they've helped us in some way with the magazine. So we've got Nitty McPurley. She did a mitten pattern in the first issue. We've got Anna Knitter over in Germany. We've got Skeins Yarn. We've got Liz Clothier, Anne Pinkover, Deplorable Knitter, Yankee Rose Creations. Oh, if you like amigurumi, who was talking about amigurumi? Oh, Joe Bob. You go and look at Yankee Rose Creations. She does fantastic amigurumi, and she also sells patterns for them as well. Really good. And Wise Owl Knits, Little Ragamuffin. Oh no, Little Ragamuffin. Sorry. Karen Giuliano. My eyesight is so bad. Oh, Millie Knits, I think that one is, and Love Stitched as well. Moving on. I'm just reading some of the comments. I'll just put this. The audacity. I love that word. The audacity of her saying we can't sell a product that we game all the time to make is just wrong. Gave all the time to make. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, what you buy the yarn, you put in the man hours, woman hours, whatever you want to say. That belongs to you. It does not belong to her. The only copyright claim she has is over the written word of her pattern. And that's it. Okay, this was a review of a book called The Typical Tudor. And I really got myself in a tiz over this. I kind of had... I don't know. It really annoyed me because at the time there was a couple of other things going on as well that fed into this, and it's a really good book. It's a very expensive book, but it's very good. It's about 50 English pounds. So what's that? I don't know, maybe $65 maybe, and it's very well written. It's extremely well researched, apart from one huge aspect, and it's all about the supposed typical Tudor and what they would have worn, and you wouldn't believe like how many stories and how much information there is about this. There's a tiny bit of knitting. There's knitted socks, which if you watch Roxanne Richardson, she's done a whole thing about the socks that were in this book. There's a hat, and it's a felted hat though. So I did consider making it, and then I thought, oh, I've never done felting before. I don't really want to go down that route. So it's an excellent book. I do recommend it. However, here's where, for me, they kind of spoil it because they're trying to change history. So, and it's in the photography of the models. So what they did is they basically sort of pushed in a load of people that didn't live in Tudor England. So they've made all the models, not all, there's a couple that aren't, but most of the models are black. Now, under normal circumstances, I would have no problem with that. That isn't the issue. And if this book had just been called Tudor Garments, I would have no issue with that. But it's because they've called it the typical Tudor. So basically, to me, what should be in this book now are models that look like a typical Tudor. And there were so few black people in Tudor England that they're notable. You know, we know of them all. We know who they all were. And, you know, I talk about this because I linked to some of the books that have been written about these Tudors. And it's always the same ones who they know very little about it. And they even use people that weren't even in this country. So, for instance, they always bring out this trumpeter. There's a black trumpeter. And I think it turns out that he's not actually African. He's, you know, somewhere from the Middle East rather than black African. And he was in France. And it's like, well, I don't think he was actually English. So it's very disingenuous to me. And it really annoyed me. And it was going on along the same time as, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen now, there's pictures of Black Boy Lane in London, in the borough of Haringey. And I used to live in Haringey, so I know where this is. And the people didn't want this to change. The council have changed the name of it, and I can't remember. You can't actually see what they've changed it to here. Is it Rose Lane or something? They changed it to the name of a black person who was, I don't know, a poet or something. Now, they were saying that Black Boy Lane referred to slavery. And it's because they don't actually know history. It doesn't. Black Boy Lane refers to, I think it's King Richard. When he was a boy, he was called the Black Boy because he had very, very dark eyes and black hair. And he was called the Black Prince, the Black Boy. So people that don't understand history and just come along with an agenda see that and have said that this king, I think it's King Richard, they often say, oh, he was actually black. He's like, no, he wasn't black. He was white. He just had black hair and dark eyes. They called him the Black Boy. And it also shows how few black people would have been around in that era for them to call somebody who was white black. You know, somebody with a little bit of olive skin would have been classed as being black. So Adam here mentions Anne Boleyn. Now, Anne Boleyn, the famous second wife of King Henry, who was beheaded, she was described as being swarthy, which just means, you know, olive-skinned. And they tried to, you know, they're trying to make her history say she was a black woman, a black queen, which is absolute nonsense. It really is. And Rita, I can't say your first name, Dionysia, but Rita. She says David Starkey called that out. Yeah, if you don't know who David Starkey is, he's a brilliant English historian. He's a little bit excuse me, what's the word? A bit cutting. He doesn't mince his words, says what he wants. He's been cancelled a couple of times. But yeah, he knows all about this as well. So he's worth watching if you can find anything that he talks about to do with this. So anyway, I had a bee in my bonnet about that. And so I had to write about it. And it kind of didn't get noticed. I thought people would be, you know, up in arms about it, you know, the craft snarkers, but they didn't. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I always do this. I never turn my phones off. Oh, well, you just have to leave it doing that thing for a second. I'm so professional. Okay, affiliate testers, we've taken that out of the more recent issues. And like I said before, the bloggers and vloggers that they seem to think is the N word because of the font. And this again was originally going to be in the first issue, so I felt there was a place for it in the 1 year anniversary issue, and this was before the Lola Bean $100,000 cash grab. So it's like, wow, I wish I'd managed to get that in. And this is all about people in the knitting world that are begging. Now, I want to differentiate here between begging and having something like, say, a patron. And it isn't just because I've got Patreon. It is, you know, because to me, that isn't begging. That is people going of their own volition. I don't particularly talk about it much. You know, it's not like every time you see me doing one of these, I'm not always saying, oh, give me money, like some people perhaps do. But one of the things about the begging things that are in this article is, so I'll start with the Italian job. So this is a reasonably famous British hat designer, mostly. And she's always begging for money. So, but what her thing was, she wanted to buy a house in Italy. And that's what she was doing a GoFundMe for. Well, buy your own bloody house. You know, why should people be donating their hard-earned money so you can go and live in Italy? And the thing about it is that when she got the house, she then started a new GoFundMe for furniture for inside that house. And it's like, this is audacity. You know, this is the epitome of audacity. It's like, how can you do, I don't know. I mean, the details in this article tells you the amounts of money they were wanting to get and the amount of money they actually got. And, you know, they did do that. The next one, Uber Eat Me. I think that one, yeah, it's about Fatima of Fleecing the Disturbed, as I call her. And the thing about this is that there's a sad aspect to this. So, as always, you know, if you highlight the things that they are doing that's, you know, bad, the problem is that then they say you're, you know, picking on them when they're down or whatever. But that isn't the case. So she was at the hospital, visiting hospital for a sick relative, and she'd moved to Vancouver previously. And so she had to come back to Georgia, I think it was. And she couldn't afford, well, she says she couldn't afford the parking tickets at the hospital and she couldn't afford to feed herself. So she was begging her followers to give her money for parking tickets, hospital parking tickets. Well, that, you know, that isn't what you should be doing. That is begging. That isn't, you know, selling something. You I don't know whether other people get the point of that. Anyway, this is the one that I did get flack for. So this one, they said I was being transphobic. And and it was funny on Craft Snap because I said to them, I managed to get a message through to one of them before it was deleted, show the evidence of what you're accusing me of. So they did actually copy all of this section where it says, buy me free breast removal. And they posted it on Craft Snack, and the moderators made them, it was blacked out completely, every single word, because they said that it was transphobic and harmful. And the funny thing is, when you read it, the last sentence completely takes that away. There's no way you can interpret this as being transphobic. So anyway, the issue that was here was, this is a girl called Amy Florence. I think her business is called Stranded Dye Works. Now, she lives in the UK. She's English, but she currently lives in Scotland. And the reason that's relevant is because Scotland has different rules when it comes to prescription drugs. So England, in the UK, people of England are the only people that have to pay for prescription drugs. Everybody else gets them free. So the Scottish get them free, the Welsh get them free, and people in Northern Ireland get them free. And it's not right. It's not fair. It's definitely direct discrimination against the English. However, she moved to Scotland. And I remember at the time thinking this was a bit strange. I wonder why she's moved there. And I believe that it's so that she can get free hormone prescriptions because she's having she's changing. Well, she's doing the thing where she thinks she's changing gender, changing sex, and that's not the issue though. So what the issue is that, again, under UK rules, everybody in the UK is entitled to free healthcare at the point of use. Now that means, because we pay for it in our taxes and things like national insurance and so on. So if something happened to me now and I had to go to the hospital, I wouldn't have to pay a penny for that. I wouldn't get a bill afterwards. I know this is how it works in America. You go, they will treat you, but then you get a bill. That doesn't happen here. And if you have to see a doctor, that is free. The only thing about it is that English people then have to pay for any medication that you receive after the event. So if you're given medication in hospital, you don't get charged for that. But if you have to get medication to go home with, you do have to pay for that. Okay, hope that's cleared that up. So anyway, if you're a trans person if you're a woman that wants to become a man, they do these operations on the NHS, as it's called. That's our National Health Service. So she would have been able to have a breast reduction on the NHS. Now, I don't agree with this because I feel that this is just cosmetic. And I believe that the National Health Service should be for essential treatment only. If it's if it's to have a nose job or a boob job or anything that isn't going to help your health, I don't think you should be allowed to have it. But anyway, you're allowed this. So she must have been on the list to have this boob removal operation. So she did a GoFundMe to get the money so she could have it done privately. But my issue with this is that was an unnecessary GoFundMe as far as I'm concerned. She would have got it for free. Now, the other part to this, people say, how do you know? You kind of know people in your own country. And I know that Amy Florence, now called Jake? No, it's not. I can't remember. It's a J name. Jack, Jake, Jude. She now calls herself Jude. So I know Jude comes from quite a wealthy background, and sadly, and this is sad. I'm not making fun of this at all. Both her parents died very, very quickly, and in one of her shows, she sort of pointed out how she had to get all the money things shifted over when her mother died into her father's name, and then had to do it all again when the father died into her name. So they had a house. We know that they owned that house. So she inherited all of that. And then not long after, she then had a holiday in America. And it's like, she didn't need that money. She didn't need money to have that boob job. I'm calling it a boob job. That could have been done for free for her, although the country pays for it. So some people would argue, say, oh, no, she did the right thing because it wasn't at the expense of the taxpayer. But the issue is the people that would have given her that money, mostly Americans, not all of them can afford to do that. I'm going to share this. This is right, Kat. I was actually quite shocked. I watched one. She was laughing. When her parents died, she was laughing about it. And she was more upset when the cat from next door died. Not her cat or whatever it was she called it. That one she seemed to care about. Whereas when her parents died, she did laugh. And I know people react to grief in different ways, but yeah, it's worth pointing that out for people that are going to, say things to me. Yeah. So we don't know this, Tabitha. So allegedly. So yeah, people say maybe she did get the surgery for free and then use the GoFundMe for her American holiday, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. We're not quite sure on that. We can't say. But yeah, I didn't like it, and I thought this is wrong, and people need to know, because I don't think Americans generally know how the British health system works. If I suddenly say to you, oh my God, I've got X disease, I need an operation, I need money, start asking questions, because the thing is, my treatment is free here. In America, I understand when people do that, because some people can't afford the insurance. And I know the insurance thing was absolutely crazy under Obama. One of my relatives, I think they were paying something like $1,600 a month just for healthcare. And that's like, wow, how can you afford that? That's, some people only earn that amount of money. But anyway, sorry, I'm really going off on one here, aren't I? Yeah, so this was about the breast removal. And then... what was this one? Radical Thread. Oh, this was about raising money for the magazine Radical Threads. So for those that don't know, Radical Threads is a racist magazine, and they only allow Black and people of colour to write articles or to do patterns or be models on there and so on. So they want your money, though, as white people or whatever race you are. They want all your money, but you're not allowed to be in it. You're excluded from that magazine. And they were raising money so they could release, was it issue 3 or issue 4? I can't remember. But they charge $35, or is it $45? I can't remember. It's either $35 or $45 per issue anyway. And they wanted $15,000 so that they could produce the next issue. Now, granted, what I will say to them is their magazine, I've never actually seen a physical copy, but I think it's, it's high gloss, it's, printed, it's a physical magazine. So there are more costs involved with that than, say, doing block magazine. And I get that. However, my argument there is that if you can't afford to publish your next issue, and you haven't made enough money from the previous, sales, then your business isn't right. You need to look again at your business. You shouldn't be begging, from people that have already paid for it. Because the other thing is, I would say, well, what do they get for that money that they donate? Are they going to get a free magazine? Well, they're not. They just donate that money and then they have to pay when the new magazine comes out. So to me, that is really, really wrong. Sorry, I've got a really blocked nose as well, so I'm probably making all sorts of snotty nose, piggy noises. I think it might be hay fever again. It's a bit late for hay fever this season, isn't it? Unless it's the goof. I probably caught it from doing that the last issue thing where I talked about Patty. Right. Anyway, so moving on. So then Your Darkest Dress was a fictional piece. So have a look at that, because D. Marie Prokop, and I'm going to keep saying this, I always kept calling her Marie D. Prokop because I used to work with someone called Marie Prokop. So whenever I see a name, I read it wrong. So I don't know. I did it. I don't know if this was the one where I did it wrong, actually. One of them I did it wrong. And yeah, so here's the grift part. Here's where, I want your money. Come on, give me your money. So join Patreon. But as I said, Patreon's on hiatus until the 1st of September. So you won't be able to join now anyway. And nobody who is on Patreon is being charged anything and won't be charged until the 1st of September. So we're basically having a bit of a holiday. We're starting work already on issue 10, which I'm hoping will be out on the last, did I say 1st of September? I did, didn't I? I said it before as well. We're in October, aren't we? No, we're not in October. I'm in October. So 1st of October is when the next oh my God, I'm losing it. I need somebody with me to keep me on track, I think. Yeah, it's going to be the 1st of October is when the next payments will be taken, and it should be the last day of September around when the issue 10 is released. I've lost a month, haven't I? I've just slept through an entire month. I don't know. Anyway, here, I just want to talk about BS Design. So BS Designs is the lady that puts together the magazine and does a lot of work behind the scenes. She does far more work than I do, and I just want to give her a bit of a heads up. So if people want any design work doing, give her a shout. I know she has done some design work for some other people recently, yeah, she's lovely as well. Yes, I need a nap. Bath and bed, yes. Ugh, I don't know. Well, it is. I keep saying it's one of the hottest days so far in the UK, so I'm getting hot and bothered. Shall I do another one, or is an hour enough? What do you reckon? Have a little vote in the chat. What do you think? Shall I do number 8? Because what I'm thinking is issue 9 is the issue where Kerry is on the cover and inside as well. And Kerry and I have been trying to plan for an episode where she comes on my show. So that would be the perfect time where we go, through through issue 9. So what I'll do then, I'll do the next one, and then that will be the last one. So we'll probably be about another half an hour, maybe. So let me come out of issue 7. Let's just check there wasn't anything at the end there. No. So the next one will be issue 8, which is this one. Okay. Right. Is that on the screen okay? Nick Madness says yes. So, okay. So who knows who he is? Anybody? Anyone want to say? This was a strange cover. I have to admit, I struggled with this because I didn't feel we had anything to use as a cover, and I don't know. So what I did, I'd written someone's put, I love that. Oh wow, cool. I'd written an article about Kitchener Stitch. Now this is Kitchener himself. There's a reason for that, which I'll get to a little bit later on. Yep, Kitchener, that's the one. So this is a picture of Kitchener that I turned into a graph. So the idea for this being that you would be able to turn it would be huge. It'd be massive if you did it for real. You could turn it into a cross stitch or, a fair, it wouldn't be Fair Isle, would it? But a colour work knitted thing, if you so desired. I can't imagine you would want to. But that's why I did this, because I didn't have anything knit related to show for the cover at this point. So that's what the cover's about. This is just my usual blurb where I give all the excuses why the magazine has been late for that month. They're getting good. My excuses are getting better. I'm keeping a list of them so I don't say the same excuse over and over. Yet again, The Laziest Knitter did a great article about stranded knitting, and she does all these herself, by the way, all these images and all the knitted pieces that she shows. So I won't talk about that. Have a read of it. It's quite technical. It's very good. Positive Ease. Now, what we were going to do, we'd been doing the drop stitch of the month for quite a while, or drop stitch of the issue, I should say, because we weren't really doing a monthly magazine, really. And I wanted to start doing something that had a more positive spin as well, because we were getting a bit of criticism from, friends of the magazine saying they felt that was a bit negative. And so I wanted to have something to balance it out. But the problem that we have is that I ask people for, positive stories, and often they don't have any, but everyone's got a negative story. It's like everyone remembers all the bad things that happen. Not many people remember the good things that happen. But we did have a really good event that we could talk about. So this is the retreat to Nitty McPurley's retreat. I don't know a better way of describing that. So this is some of the photos. So there were people in the comments now that I know went there, and quite a few of our friends were there. Well, all of them are our friends, let's face it, aren't they? And so this was just a bit of a diary of events and what happened. So if you want to read about that, that's quite cool. And it'd be great to be able to go on one of these in the future if I could ever make it over. Okay, the Procrastinatory Knitter. So it's kind of, how can I explain this? It's almost like a blog post, and I like it because it kind of gives a bit of personality. It's like there's a bit of humanity to the magazine with articles like this, because it's not just about facts and figures and things that have happened. It's how someone feels about things and how it's affected them and so on. And this is about how, and we've all been guilty of being procrastinators with our knitting. You know, so we all will probably associate with this. We've got an advert here for April showers, and that was Deplorable Knitter. I'm assuming that's over now, so I hope that went well. And do I owe a prize for that, DK? I'm sure I said I'd give a prize for that. Well, maybe I should say nothing and just hope it goes away. Okay, this on the left is German Short Rows. Now, this I think is probably, if you're going to read anything in this magazine, I think this is the thing to read and keep. There was an episode of, what's he called? Nimble Knitter. He's called Norman. And he's somewhere in Germany or Europe somewhere, and he's really good, a really good knitter, and he does very, very good technical videos on how to do things. And I've never seen anybody else or heard of anybody else even talking about this particular aspect of German short rows. So we've all come across German short rows, and everybody seems to teach it in the same way. And to cut a complicated, I can't really explain it without showing it on camera. But the idea is that when you're doing short rows, you knit to a certain point, you turn the work, and then you have to do something at that point that will make it so that you close the gap on the return pass. So if you don't do anything and you just knit back, you end up with a hole in your work, which you might want, depends on what your design is, but most of the time you don't want. Now, depending on how you do it, depends on how seamless that turn is and how much it's noticeable. Now, I've never truly seen an invisible short row. I'm sure there are people out there that can do it. It might be my technique, but I've never come across that. Now, with German short rows, this has been the best one that I found for me, how I knit. Other people prefer some of the other methods. But you do the same thing regardless of which side of the knitting you're on. So you'll be purling, you stop, you turn your work, and then you slip the yarn over. So people who know how to do this are visualizing this. People that have got no idea are thinking, what is he talking about? You slip the stitch back onto your right needle, then you pull up the yarn and you create what's called a double stitch. Then you carry on knitting, and then when you come back to that, eventually you just knit it as if it's an ordinary stitch. Now, all of the instructions say the same thing. They all say to do it on either side, whether it's the knit side or the purl side. However, Nimble Needles, Norman, he said that, well, he implied that we might have been doing it wrong, all this time. And there's a different way of doing it. And when you do it on how can I explain this? So, because I can't remember off the top of my head now which way round it is, but if you're purling, you're best doing that short row the way you always have done it. But if you're knitting, you're best doing it the way Nimble Needles shows, and you will get a really good result for both versions. If you use either of the versions on both sides of the work, one of them will look better than the other every time. So this is why I keep meaning to do some swatches of this, but I don't know if anyone else is the same. It's really stupid, but it's obviously to do with my age. I'm getting dementia now or whatever. But I forget what I've done almost straight away. So when I'm doing short rows, I forget whether I did it what I would call the old way or the new way. So even when I'm doing swatches, I would literally have to have a label pinned to the piece of work to remind me of what I've actually done, because I've tried to do this a couple of times and then I forget, and then I end up doing the wrong one on the next time round. So it's a little bit like, for me, it's a little bit like learning how to do a left leaning and a right leaning decrease or increase. It took me a good year, I think, to figure out how to do it without having to look, because I knew how to do them both, but I could never remember which leaned which way. And this is kind of the same thing. I think eventually, it'll all click into place. So it's but it's really worth reading and trying to figure it out yourself a little bit as well. He does have a video for it now. But what he doesn't say much about is using both of them, because both methods, because I think you do need to use both methods. That's the caveat that I would add to this. I might come back to this. I might do a much more in-depth article about German short rows. Adam's left leaning. I don't know what you're thinking, Adam. Okay, we've got an advert for Karen Hooley. Is it Hooley? who is it like Cool Whip in Family Guy? So is it Karen Hooley or is it Karen Hooley? Or is it Karen Woolley? I don't know, actually. I'm going to be doing an interview with Karen at some point. She's going to be coming on the show possibly December time, maybe November, December. We've kind of got it penciled in, so look out for that. Dissident number 10. Oh, this is the one. Don't knit this one if you don't like rude words. That's all I'll say. So it's the first one that is 18 plus, which we kind of promised right from the beginning, and I finally got around to doing it. And this, I like doing this, and I'd like more of this kind of stuff, really. So I asked in one of the forums that we're in, one of our secret forums, I asked what people, what their other halves, you know, their husbands or partners thought about their knitting. And some of the comments on here are just so funny. Because it's just like, you know, especially men, especially that don't knit. So Adam, you know, Adam in the comments, you know, what they think knitting is about is so funny. You know, I don't know, I think they think it's a combination of magic and, you know, engineering genius, or it's just the most ridiculous thing they've ever seen in their life. I don't think there's anything in between. Drop stitch. This one, this is quite apt considering Tabitha and I did the chat yesterday. This was a drop stitch that's about the craft snarkers, and well, not just the craft snarkers, it's about online bullies in general. And if you read this article, you will see my side of a lot of the bullshit that they have been saying. So where they've made accusations against me, more often than not, it's them projecting the things that they've done to me, very much like what the Democrats do, allegedly. You know, like they're always saying things that Trump allegedly did, and then we're finding out, oh, actually Biden did it, you know, allegedly. So it's that kind of thing. There's definitely a playbook that they follow. So I'm glad that's kind of come up now, because it is timely with our chat yesterday. So here's our designers again. And so the Kitchener sink drama. Okay, Kitchener, Lord Kitchener. He was being cancelled, even though he's long dead. So the person that was cancelling him, oh, I can't remember her name. What was she called? Kate Atherley or Atherley. So Kate Atherley is trying to get the term Kitchener stitch banned. She calls it the K word, and she doesn't want people to use it because it refers to Kitchener. Now, the thing about Lord Kitchener is you have to put him in his era. So he's born in the 1800s. I think he died just towards the end of the First World War. So he died, I don't know, 1913, 1916-ish, maybe 1917-ish. It's all in the article. And the thing about him was that without this man, we would have lost the First World War. So that isn't an opinion. That is pretty much standard thought of, you know, the British. He wasn't particularly a great, you know, he wasn't very sensitive, shall we say. And he was very much of his time. And he was absolutely adored by the people. Obviously, despite what some people think, I wasn't around then, so I'm not talking, you know, from personal experience here. But one of the things about him was that when he died during the First World War, toward nearer to the end of it, someone, because of how distraught they were, I think one person at least that we know of killed themselves. They could not see life beyond him because they thought they were going to lose the war. Without him, they were convinced they would lose the First World War. So the whole thing of history would have changed without this man. That's absolutely certain. Now, what people think, I'm not saying that he wasn't involved at all, but people attribute the invention of concentration camps to this man. And they say that Adolf Hitler copied, you know, the plans and everything and used what he did as the example of this. And this was in South Africa during the Boer War. And there were some awful atrocities that happened in the Boer War, as happens in every war, I like to say. And the thing is, he didn't invent that. What happened was it was his predecessor that invented the concentration camp, and then he ended up taking over. Now, anybody that's ever, worked in a very authoritative regime of any kind, you know, the armed forces or whatever, that to be able to go into a new job like that, working for the crown, as it would be for us here in the UK, you can't just go against what a previous leader has done. Now, he didn't get rid of concentration camps. Lots of people died there of awful conditions. I think 25,000 people died, you know, so it was really bad. I'm not saying it wasn't. But the thing is, he did good things as well, you know, and what he was doing, he thought was the right thing to do. And we know now, looking back from, you know, our comfy chairs with our electricity and, you know, our internet at our fingertips, we now know that perhaps that wasn't the right thing to do. But at the time, you know, in 1914 to 1918, they wouldn't have necessarily known that. And that war was a very different thing. You know, it wasn't... I don't know, war has changed so much from the First World War to the Second World War to anything that's come after it. And I think it's just a little bit disingenuous to just label him as a bad person, because he wasn't just a bad person. There were all sorts of aspects of it. And my argument is that, you know, people really should try and look at the whole thing of a person. Everybody is shitty at some point in their life, and everybody is a saint at some point in their life. You know, nobody is all of these things. All the religious people in the comments community, Jesus was. Well, Jesus did have a few moments where he wasn't particularly saintly. I know Anne Pinkerver will back me up on that one. So anyway, going right off the topic here. So I wrote this about the Kitchener stitch, because the thing about that stitch as well, some people love it, some people hate it. I particularly love that stitch, is that it was invented to help the men in the trenches, because what was happening, the English, well, the British people especially, were getting trench foot. Now, trench foot, a lot of people think is just a bit like athlete's foot, just a bit of a fungal infection. Well, no, it's absolutely horrific. What happens is it sets in, and it basically, your flesh eventually falls away. It comes off the bone, if you like. You know, you end up crippled with it. You know, it's horrific. And it was because their feet were always wet or damp, never dry. And one of the things was because they had really bad socks. You know, the socks weren't good enough. So Kitchener was the one behind getting the women of Britain to start knitting socks. Now, they did this in all, you know, in all of the countries during World War One. I think every country that fought did the same thing. So who came up with the idea first? No idea. We don't know that. But I do think it was Kitchener, because he was, you know, the first to do a lot of things. I can't prove that though. Anyway, going off one there. Yeah, so the idea was that any other kind of join at the toe of a sock that you've knitted, because for those that don't know, you generally, not always, knit the sock from the cuff down, you do the heel, and then you do the foot, and then you do the toe, and usually the toe is open. That's where you finish knitting, and then you have to seal that toe. And the way people used to do it was that they were seaming it together, either doing what's called a 2-needle bind off, or sewing it in a weird way, but it left a ridge, it left a seam that, with people, you know, for us, we might notice it, but it's not going to be a problem. But if you've got trench foot, that seam is likely to probably take the flesh off your toes. You know, it would have been absolutely agony for those people. So he's been attributed with developing this, but he wouldn't have done it. The knitters, some knitters, for I think it was Vogue magazine, first published it, and they came up with a way of sewing up that toe that's called the Kitchener stitch now, because it gives a completely seamless join. Now, everybody knows, who's a knitter, who has done it. You know, anyone who's knitted a pair of socks especially will know what the Kitchener stitch is. Whether they remember exactly how to do it is another matter, but they know it, and they understand it and can differentiate it from any other kind of way of seaming a sock. So when they want to change the name of it, they're just going to cause a load of confusion. And they want to change the name just because of modern sensibilities. You know, most people who do a Kitchener stitch wouldn't have even known who Lord Kitchener was. You know, they wouldn't have even thought about him. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know, it's just a pointless thing to do. And I just think this Kate Atherley, who's a complete woke, I won't say the word, you insert your own word after, it's just getting brownie points. She's just trying to create a new drama out of something that we've been doing for years, you know. And so when I wrote about that, I then did this comic strip. So the idea is these characters, hopefully you'll know who they all are. Well, the Americans, I hope you all know. Obviously now, Tucker no longer works for Fox, so I'll have to come up with a new one. And I don't know, is it Lemon? He doesn't work for CNN anymore, does he? I don't think. So I'll have to change that as well. So whenever there's any kind of breaking news in the knitting world, I'm going to be using the same images, but I'll have to update them now. So the idea is that they're all moaning about this, you know, and that they're moaning about Kitchener Stitch, but then they're keeping quiet about the South Africans in the Shadow Party in South Africa chanting to kill the Boer, which is basically kill white people. And that's what they chant every time they get together. And nobody ever says a word about that. It's like they don't seem to make the connection between that and the murders of the white South Africans, which is really bad at the moment. Go do some research if you don't have you know, if you've got a queasy stomach, don't, because it's bad what's going on over there. But anyway, it's like, oh, they're more bothered about Kitchener Stitch than they are about people being murdered and being, you know, and that's the irony of the left, I feel. So that's what this comic strip is about. Bloggers and vloggers, again, they've linked that to the N-word. I've said that 3 times now. Knitting reference. So this is something that I've been trying to do more of in the magazine. So I've managed to get together a bit of a library of books, and I've been asking Kathleen here to do reviews of different books that she's interested in. So she's done a few now, and they've been excellent. And this one was about reference sources. So things like, what's it called? The Principles of Knitting and so on, things like that. And she's done a good comparison there. Obviously, she's limited in terms of space and how much she can write. She did a good one about, I think that's in issue 9, I think, about fat people and knitting, you know, books that are designed for people to either gauge up and down or whatever. So that was quite a good one. And hopefully she'll do more for us. So then here we go. We've got the Patreon grift here. Also, we still need you, definitely. So we definitely need more articles and more patterns and so on. Without you guys doing that, the magazine will come to nothing, because otherwise, because there isn't enough of us that are, you know, connected to Blocked, you know, the proofers and so on. There isn't enough of us to actually create the content that we need. So we definitely need more contributions, please. And so that was issue 8. Hey, I'm up to date. Wow. God, I can't believe it. So I can't believe how many people are watching as well. So we've done all of our Block stuff. So, oh, I'm big. I wasn't expecting that. Sorry, I'm all sweaty. It's really, really hot. But thank you very much for sitting with me to go through that. I didn't think anybody would actually join us, and we've got quite a few people here at the moment. So while we're just sort of finishing everything up, has anybody got any questions about Block Magazine? Anything you want to know, or any, you know, suggestions you want to say before we go? I'll just cough and sputter while people maybe think. Oh, Adam, you so funny. British Empire, you miss us now? Well, isn't it funny? You know, South Africa would love to have us back, wouldn't they? But, you know, if we did, I think it would have to be under different circumstances. Certainly not in the way it was. Morgan, sorry about that. I'm assuming you're thinking about people's feet, aren't you now? They're trotters. Adam, yes. Has anybody hit like yet? Come on, go on. And I'm just going to go through the comments again, so see what I've missed. This is a good point. There is more people here than Adam, by the way. I'm just sharing some of his. So the left refused to concede that Nazis were left-wing. Absolutely they were. They were the the National Socialist Party. And the thing about politics that people don't always understand is that the more authoritarian you get, so the more the government, and I know people who are watching understand this. I feel like I'm teaching grandma to suck eggs here. But the more authoritative you get, the more left wing you get. So the more control the government have, the more likely it's left wing. Whereas the less the government has influence, the more towards the right you get, and the more towards anarchy you get. So when people think that it's a regime, you know, a fascistic regime, it's not going to be a right-wing regime. It's always going to be a left-wing regime, because the only time the right, an absolute far right person is someone that won't have any government at all. So they're just people that are, you know, Wild West type thing, you know. And that's my sort of 5-minute interpretation of far left and far right. We can't get air conditioners in the UK. What? Oh, this is my favorite one. Well, DK, I learned everything from you. You were here first, being the bigot first, and I just copied what you guys did. So, so thank you for that. Okay, so I think, is it time to go? How long have I been on? An hour and a half almost. So thank you very much. I am now up to date. I can't believe it. I'm so pleased because it's kind of, you know, when something's I'd forgotten about it, but it's one of the things where I knew I had something that I had to do with the channel, and I couldn't think what it was. So now I'm completely up to date, and yeah, for those that don't know, that's me apparently. Okay, right, I'm gonna go. So everybody watching this, oh God, I need to get it up on my screen first. Do you know, I am so shit at doing this podcasting thing, but I'm a bit like Two Sisters and Some Yarn. I kind of like a bit of chaos in it, a little bit, you know. If it was really anodyne and clean and, you know, perfect, I just don't think it's as good. So anyway, everybody watching, you have all been blocked.